Welcome to the Grazing Grass Podcast, episode 144. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And it just comes down to mindset.
You're listening to the Grazing Grass Podcast, sharing information and stories of grass-based livestock production utilizing regenerative practices. I'm your host, Cal Hardage. You're growing more than grass. You're growing a healthier ecosystem to help your cattle thrive in their environment. You're growing your livelihood by increasing your carrying capacity and reducing your operating costs. You're growing stronger communities and a legacy to last generations. The grazing management decisions you make today impact everything from the soil beneath your feet to the community all around you. That's why the Noble Research Institute created their Essentials of Regenerative Grazing course to teach ranchers like you easy to follow techniques to quickly assess your forage production and infrastructure capacity in order to begin grazing more efficiently. Together, they can help you grow not only a healthier operation, but a legacy that lasts. Learn more on their website at noble.org/grazing. It's noble.org/grazing.
On today's episode, we have Taylor Moyer. The name may sound familiar to you because he's been on a few other podcasts, and he was on episode 58 of the Grazing Grass. And we talked about his journey into regenerative farming while working in NASCAR. He joins us again today to catch up what's happened in the last 18 months. He's retired from NASCAR, and he's also taken on a new position with Land Trust. So we're going to talk about that a little bit today. And just as a teaser, we have Nick, the CEO from Land Trust, on Friday. How that can work with your farm to provide another revenue stream, if that works for you. But we talked Taylor today. We talked about what he's doing on his farm. Then we get into Land Trust and what he's doing there now. For 10 seconds about the farm, not too long ago, I was complaining about the drought, and the rain started. And since the rain has started here in northeast Oklahoma, we've received over 12 inches of rain. So it is the wettest November on record. I'm always glad to have some water, so I will not complain about that. For 10 seconds about the podcast, first I want to thank Lynn for reaching out. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it. And secondly, on the podcast, we are getting ready to do a podcast refresh. We're going to change things up just a little bit. There'll still be the great content you expect from Grazing Grass, but we're going to change the format just a little bit, and that'll be coming to you in 3 or 4 weeks. You'll notice it, I'm sure, because the show will start a little bit different, but just be on the lookout for it, and I'd love to get your feedback whenever we do make that change. What you like, what you don't like, how we can make the Grazing Grass Podcast better for you. And with that, let's talk to Taylor. Taylor, we will welcome you back to the Grazing Grass Podcast. We're excited you're here today.
Thanks for having me, Cal. I'm excited to be back.
So Taylor, you were on the podcast about 18 months ago on episode 58. So for our listeners, can you just give us a little background and tell us where you are then before we start talking about your journey since then?
Sure. So where I was then, I believe the episode title even had something to do with my career at the time, which was in NASCAR. Yep. I've since retired from that career. When the checkered flag flew at Phoenix last year, that was my last race in NASCAR. And I walked all the way away from the sport, which had always been my goal. And my farm had been my transition plan. Anybody that has followed the cattle markets knows that it's probably a terrible time to try to scale up. And if you were sitting in my shoes last summer, it looked more favorable than the fall. But so 18 months ago, I was still working full-time in NASCAR. We were growing our farm. We were really getting our legs underneath us as far as understanding the amount of cattle our land can support, the seasons on which it could support it through, trying to find the right context for myself and my wife and our family as far as what type of cattle raisers we were. We definitely lean much more towards the grazing side. we've known for a while that our competitive advantage in the Southeast is that if you manage your grass correctly, you can almost grow grass year round, or you can grow some type of forage year round in which you can graze. We were up against, and still are, and are still always going to be, probably the disadvantage of the East. That's also an advantage is you're not very far from population centers. So we were trying to model our business, use that to our advantage to model our business around that. With that, land prices are always high. So trying to figure all that out, that's where we were. And we are far from having it figured out, but we have been operating under I would say, an adaptive business plan since then, since November, since I stepped away from racing. So we are almost back around to 1 full year of me full time on the farm. It has been it's been everything you would expect it to be. It's been exciting. It's been rewarding. It's been terrifying. It's been frustrating. I don't think anything in life comes without a tuition of some sort. And I could go to as many classes and read as many books, but at some point, if you're going to do it, do it. And you might as well do it while you're still young enough to bend and break and, give yourself some time to figure it all out. So that's where we kind of are now. And there's some very specifics that go along with that, but we can get into that later.
Let's jump back to that 6 months after you were on the episode till you retired, or however many months it was. I don't recall you ever mentioning at the time in the podcast, hey, this is my last year in NASCAR. Had you already started thinking about that, or did that come around later on?
Let's see. If I was on 18 months ago, it would have been 2022, correct?
Well, it was April of 23.
Okay.
So it's like 15, 16 months.
Sure. Yeah. Even at the position I was in within NASCAR, and I use the word retire because when you get done playing football, you retire from football. I'm not retired like I have some big bank account and I play golf every day. I just mean stepped away from the sport. I owe everything. I owe a lot of my life to what NASCAR has provided and the great people along the way that have given me jobs and been mentors and helped me through. It was a 15-year professional career. It's all I've done since I was 18. I'm 36 now. With that, NASCAR, it is the longest series in professional sports. Valentine's Day to Thanksgiving. And it's a sport that you have to give your whole life to pretty much.
Oh, yeah.
And be invested in to continue to rise and shine. And the sport's contracting in the amount of employees within the sport as the business model changes. So the people that are willing to give it, you better be 100% passionate at all times about it to make it through.
Right.
And I just knew that there would come a stage in my life when I didn't have that drive and desire and passion to go get on an airplane every single Thursday and get home every single Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's just a lot of time gone. And I did it for travel on the road full time for 10 years. The last 5 years, I was in a crew chief position, which is basically the CEO or the head coach position. It was very rewarding. It was very fun. I won races. We sat on poles. I had a bunch of great times. I was able to lead a bunch of good men and women, but I knew it had a shelf life. And I also knew the longer I did only stayed in racing, the harder it might be to try to get out of it and make a transition within my life. So it was just kind of a natural fit of all things came together. The way it all worked out, it was a good time for me to make an exit. And it was funny because as I was exiting, people were still calling me, come crew chief this race car. A week before the Daytona 500, I got a call to go crew chief and try to get a car into the Daytona 500. Like, there's a need for good people in the sport. It was just not. The light had gone out a bit for me. I think if you're going to lead people, you can't fake passion. My guys knew that if they walk up to me, I'd be much more enjoyable. If they wanted to talk about cows, I'd talk their ears off. Race cars, I was just burned out on. To be quite honest. So it was just kind of time. And I had maybe it happened a year earlier than I thought it would, but you can't always choose the timing of life either. I just try to worry about what I can control, not what I can't. And it seemed to work out that way. So here we are.
So how's that transition gone for you? Going back onto the farm or being at the farm every weekend now?
I'm here full time. This is we live here full time. We sold our other place, which was closer to the race shop.
Oh, yeah.
Man, it's been really rewarding in a lot of ways. Lifestyle, I'm not somebody who buys into the farming is a lifestyle. Farming is a lifestyle, but you need to make sure it's not a hobby that costs you money, right?
Right. You've got to make money. The
Yeah.
lifestyle is a bonus, but it doesn't pay any bills.
Correct. But I enjoy the lifestyle of living out here in the country at our farm, where similar setting to where I was born and raised. So that's been great. The amount of extra time in our lives to focus on the things that are important to us is also really been really rewarding. And the other big part of it, that's maybe more of a personal thing, is just being able to be involved back in my community, which I was always so busy. I had no time. I was gone on the weekends. Your friends normally have Monday to Friday job. I didn't really have much of a social life, and that's always been important to me. Whether it's community organizations or just having friends and family or being able to help your neighbor with stuff. I didn't have any time for that anymore. So that was a big part and focus to me. It was just maybe a little bit better quality of life. And so far, all that's been great. And the farming and ranching has been great too. It's been a good year, ups and downs, but headed the right way. So that's the positive side of it.
Has your farm evolved
Oh, yeah.
differently than maybe you anticipated during this time?
Maybe we pumped the brake. I had some pretty big plans to scale pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
But then when you still really factor in, the price of some cattle and the price to scale and the fact that, depreciation might eat you up if the market falls tomorrow or whatever, I've always been slightly risk adverse. I'm not a huge gambler. So we've been scaling up tactfully, let's say. We've been turning a lot of cattle. We kind of have, what I like to say is we have multiple complementary enterprises here. We kind of do the opposite here of what everybody else around us does. And that's where our biggest margins are for us to be able to grow, economically as a business. It doesn't make it easy. It's hard. It's socially, it's not too hard because I'm kind of a weirdo anyways. I'm the guy that left NASCAR to farm, right? So everybody thinks I'm crazy. But things like as far as I know, I'm one of the only spring calving herds around. So finding advice from old farmers like, hey, how do you improve your breed up in the spring? What mineral do you feed in the spring to help improve your breed up? Most guys say, oh, well, we breed in the fall. And you're like, oh yeah, well, crap. So some of the resource stuff specific to this region specifically has been a little harder. But the business has definitely evolved to the right direction. And I've been working really hard with the team of, I put together a business team. We have people here on the farm, both like some part-time employees, myself, my wife, and some other people around us that are our business team, as well as, we use John Haskell and Ranch Right LLC out in Wyoming as our, business coaches and mentors and education centers still very involved with ranching for profit. But been using every resource we can find to try to grow in a smart way and give ourselves a little breathing room and chance to make it.
Just on that breed up or breed back, that puts you breeding during the heat of summer. How has that been going for you?
Mixed results. We have it slid back a little bit, so we're not into the meat heat of summer. So usually when the heat gets here bad, it's about the third heat cycle anyway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've been trying to be more selective with, in a perfect world, if I had a huge herd of cows, I'd run a really tight breeding window and I would use all conditional pressure.
Oh,
but I can't go broke along the way of getting there. So a lot of times a late live calf is still worth more to me than a cull cow. So we went like 75 days last year. I think we were at 80 days this year. And sometimes it just comes down to where we are in our big rotation and can I easily just get the bull out of the herd? To be quite honest.
Yeah.
It hasn't gone terrible. We're also a pretty low, we're economically minded input herd. I don't love the low input tag because it's not like I'm so cheap I won't go buy stuff if it would help. But if if it doesn't return on my investment, I try not to go just pump lick tubs out there all the time for no reason. So the system we have, we've been pretty good. We've been above like the 80% mark, which is okay for our inputs. I mean,
Right.
I think there's a lot of studies out there that like say moving from like 90 to 95, the juice might not be worth the squeeze. What we've tried to do though, and I mentioned this, is we try to find cows in the market that are undervalued. So maybe they're late fall calvers or a winter calver, honestly,
Oh, yeah.
more so around here. We can buy those at a discount generally because they're very far back in a fall calver's calving window. Whether they come with a calf or we calve them out, the next time, they might maybe they're skinny. Maybe that's why they're nutritionally deficient.
Oh, yeah.
We generally are pretty good at putting weight on cattle, especially cows here. And so they can get a chance in our spring herd. So that's kind of how we can buy in for cheap when the opportunities become available.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then in the same sense, anything that falls out of it doesn't breed. Rather than just take it to the sale barn, I know my lowest cost to keep a cow per day is through the summer here, and the spring and the summer. So I can get those cows pretty darn fat and black, and they kind of then turn into and then I can breed them for the fall, and then they turn into a premium product. So at least I've done the math the last 2 years, and both years there was a better chance that I would get a lot higher return running those cows for cheap through the summer, getting them bred and selling them as a fall bred cow than just taking them as an open spring cow into our market. Because from my research around here and all the people I know, like 90% of the guys are fall bred herds around here. So you end up creating something that looks like it's really well conditioned and looks like the top of the pile in a fall bred herd. And you never know, those cows might shine in a fall bred herd, and that's just what they want. So
Right. And sometimes, a cow doesn't breed back for that first time. We're of the philosophy that, well, she figures it out in someone else's herd. She didn't work for our management system. However, I have to say, I purchased 2 cows, I guess a few years ago, 2 cows that were fat in great shape to calve in my right window, but they'd missed that guy's window.
Yep.
And I wanted the cows. I thought they fit my program, so I purchased them. They have not missed a beat since I've gotten into my herd. And, that first breed back, especially on a 2-year-old heifer, try and raise the calf and get bred back. We're not ones to give much grace on that. If they don't get back, they get to go sell barn. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad purchase either. In fact, talking about undervalued cows, it makes me think sometimes buying those 2-year-old open heifers that's kind of thin going through a sell barn, because it's obvious they just had a calf pulled off of them, might not be a bad move. Now, to be honest, and this is important, I have not put my pencil to it or tried it, but at a 20,000 feet elevation or height looking down, it looks like there may be a potential there. So I like the idea of buying cows that's calving outside of the window for your area, being a little bit lower cost. And then if you have a cow that doesn't breed, hey, if you can get her bred and then sell her as a bred cow, it'll help your pocketbook.
Yeah. Now, what I would say is you definitely want to put a pencil to it, because if it's a cow that was to miss, it was like a fall cow that was to miss, and then needs to eat hay.
Exactly.
That's 3 months.
Yeah.
You're probably better off to ship her down the road.
Right.
Save that hay for something that's making you money. I will say the caveat to that, and I've been through some marketing schools. I'm a follower of Wally Olson, Doug Ferguson, Bud Williams. I try to not get preconceived notions and not get recipes in my head.
Oh yeah.
Because there has been, I've done well on some opportunities this year by just looking at what the market report says today and where things are valued against each other. There's definitely, and you have to go look at your local markets. It's good to know what's going on nationally, but there's always some regional stuff that you might not even understand. But you need to understand that and understand where the opportunities are within your own community, because you might end up being the niche guy. For example, with cows being so expensive, and I was like, man, I really need to scale up, just for revenue reasons.
Oh yeah.
What I did this year was I ended up LRPing all my calves. So I had some, guaranteed value at the end of the year. And I LRP'd more than I knew I was even going to have in my herd. But that let me know that if I had the calf alive on the date that it needed to be quantified by, in my case, my banker, that I would get that return. So then I went and bought what I call skinny pairs. I went and bought cows with calves at their side. All the cows I bought were skin and bones. They look like older cows. Obviously, they look like good sound cows. They just needed some groceries. And we grow grass. And I my LRP contract was on steers. So I only bought cows with bulls or steers at their side. And I was buying them at the value of what the calf is worth in October. And of everything, so then when I split the pairs, when I weaned, which we just weaned 3 weeks ago, when I split the pairs, the cows were 300 pounds bigger, and I turned right back around and sold those cows as bred spring cows. I sold them private treaty. I found somebody I was very honest with what they were. And this person is over the moon to have some good, solid, tall. They're way taller than I like, but you'll never have to worry about pulling a calf out of these big old girls. Good, solid cows. And I guess what I was looking at, at that time, I think I bought them in March, maybe April. The grass was greening up, and nobody was darting their eyes at them just because they look so pulled down from their calves. But the calf is already alive. The calf is on the ground. The calf is healthy. And these girls just needed some groceries. And that was what I probably did the best as far as how my dollars were spent this year on.
You raise a important point there. Regional differences in prices. You got to be careful. I think you got to be careful about sale barn you go to. A number of years ago, I started going to a different sale barn just to observe, and I started buying lightweight calves there because I thought they were undervalued at this one market. You could buy lightweight calves cheaper than I could buy them at other markets, all in the same area. And I don't know why that was. It's interesting. You just got to pay attention and look. You mentioned Wally Olson and Doug Ferguson. Have you been to either of their schools?
I've been to Wally's school, and then I read Doug's article every week that he puts out. Wally's tied in through Right LLC and ranching.fyi, which I'm members of. So I interact with Wally a lot. And I think they're both great. They're both have a little bit different philosophies on sell by, but that's very much sell by. The sell by philosophy is very much what's in the back of my head at all times whenever I'm buying. And in fact, the more I do it, the more it makes sense. It's one of those things at the beginning that's like, it's so counterintuitive to most people. Maybe it's counterintuitive to most people. Maybe it's counterintuitive to you because your grandpa, your dad has done it differently. I actually envision it much more in my head. You see people do it with automobiles all the time. But in cows, it's not as traditional, right? And I think the reason they do it in automobiles is because automobiles depreciate so fast. So people understand that very much in automobiles. Rarely do they appreciate. So the whole, you would call it flipping vehicles, is a very similar concept. But everything we sell, we try to replace back, within a 2-week window. And then it's the difference between there is the profit we've made. So you make your profit, especially once you comprehend that you make your profit on the buy and on the sell, you're just cash flowing. It gets pretty clear in your head how this thing goes. And it makes in seeing good deals a little easier. So
one thing that Doug said one thing that Doug said, and I'm going to paraphrase this incorrectly, but if you sell animals and it's not a calf that was raised out of a cow, so you're not producing that animal, you're selling that cow. If you're not replacing her, and I'm using a cow as an example, we're replacing that animal in 2 weeks on that same market, that's not a sell by. You just terminated that, and that's a liquidation. And that's always in my head when I think about it. If I'm not, and you can't liquidate your whole farm or you got nothing left.
True. Yeah, no, I don't disagree, especially because the market can move, right? Essentially what you're doing is a liquidation, and then you're doing another version.
A rebuy,
Yeah, I'm guilty of both. I mean, I'm pretty good at buying back right away, but I'm also guilty of, like right now, while feed resources are a little scarce with no rain, I've definitely got some of that sitting in some bank accounts.
Oh, yeah.
As cash.
Well,
But I also know my market regionally pretty well. And again, this is speculating. And this would go against what Doug says. And I very much think that that guy's way wiser than I am.
oh, he is. Yeah, both of us.
Trying to match my context, my feed resource, and also my time. We're going into Thanksgiving, Christmas. I still have these big, beautiful families. I know I'm going to do some traveling. I don't need a bunch of high risk calves right now.
Oh, yeah.
So I know it's risky. The market can move, but regionally, traditionally, calves are pretty cheap here. From the prices stay depressed between Thanksgiving to New Year's, and then generally from New Year's till green grass, they're on a rising plane.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I feel like if there was a time of year to sit out, and I'm not talking about all my capital sitting out, just some of it.
Right, right.
If there was a time of year to sit on my hands a little bit, now is when I'm choosing to do it. Right, wrong, or indifferent. That is as far as strict sell by marketing. That does go against it.
Yeah, and everything's in your context, and it's a balancing act. So, yeah, you have to do what you think's best. But I do think Doug's statement about that's very interesting. I have that in the back of my head.
Yeah.
Now, like you mentioned, it's kind of a bad time to try and expand with current cattle prices.
Yep. Yeah. Buy high, sell lows never worked. Ask Warren Buffett. He'll correct you immediately.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Did you do land trust before working for him, or did you start
Yes.
working for him first?
Kind of all happened simultaneously, but I literally just heard Nick on Working Cows podcast and cold called the CEO and said, "You need a farmer and rancher with some business experience to be on your team." And he said, "I agree. Let's try it out." So I was looking for that service for this place as an enterprise to stack on my acres.
Oh, yeah.
And then I started to work for them, just some contract labor stuff to see what skills I had. And then it turned into a full-time position. So
Were you utilizing, when all that went through, did you decide, hey, maybe we can do some stuff with land trust on the land as a landowner?
yes, yeah, that's exactly it. So we knew we're only an hour from Charlotte, North Carolina. We have people wanting to come out here all the time. We have a pretty website. We have decent social media. And it is part of my mission and vision to reconnect people to the land. This isn't some closed door place. You want to come see cows with me in a controlled manner.
Oh, yeah.
So we needed some type of tool to facilitate that, to cover ourselves liability wise and make it as low lift on ourselves as we can.
Oh,
So when
right.
when I heard about Land Trust on Working Cows podcast, I was like, this is exactly what we need. This is Airbnb for outdoor recreation. This doesn't require any overheads from me. I don't even have to build any extra web page on my website. I don't have to deal with bookings, none of that stuff. They do all of that, and I just have to own the land and do what I'm good at. So I thought it was brilliant. So we immediately enrolled our place in it, and we don't do any hunting or fishing. We just do photography and farm tours. So
Oh, okay.
yep, we already had some photography going on here, but I was only allowing photographers that I know and trusted to come out with their clients when I wasn't around. So as that expanded, how can we were trying to figure out how we could mitigate the liability for other photographers that we weren't as familiar with. So that's how we utilize it here.
We need to go ahead and introduce our overgrazing topic, which is sponsored by Redmond. At Redmond, we know that you thrive when your animals do. That's why it's essential to fill the gaps in your herd's nutrition with the minerals that they need. Made by nature, our ancient mineral salt and conditioner clay are the catalyst in optimizing the nutrients your animals get from their forage. Unaltered and unrefined, our minerals have the natural balance and proportion that your animals prefer. This gives your herd the ability to naturally regulate their mineral consumption as they graze. Our minerals won't just help you improve the health of your animals, but will also help you naturally build soil fertility so you can grow more nutrient-dense pasture year after year. Nourish your animals, your soil, and your life with Redmond. Learn more at redmondagriculture.com, where we take a deeper dive into something about you or your operation, and land trust is what we're going to talk about today. So let's continue the conversation about land trust. And you said, so you're utilizing, you saw or you listened to Nick on Working Cows. And just as a teaser, Nick's going to be on our podcast in just a couple of days. And you decide to sign up as a landowner, but you're only offering photography and farm tools. How's that going for you? Has that met your expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. As far as being a landowner through land trust and in utilizing the tool, it's completely seamless. It's an ironed out, flawless facilitation tool to bring people on your land, and you maintain all control, and you don't give up any rights, but no extra overheads or lift for you, right? There's no, that's the best thing. It's a new revenue stream for any farm or ranch that's not tied to politics, commodities, markets, or weather. In fact, sometimes it does better when one of those is down because people want to come back to the land, right? We saw that
they do. Yes.
Saw that during COVID. So it's just a tool. It's a free tool to landowners that you can use to do that. And when I say bring people back to the land, that can be in hunting and fishing. And full disclosure, that's very much how Land Trust started. But Land Trust has moved into what we call the farm experience model, which is stuff like photography and tours. We have some archaeological type listings, birding type listings, all these things that it's not just hunting and fishing. And what somebody lists is completely up to the landowner, which is neat. So it's all at their discretion, whatever they want to list. And we're just a tool in which you are able to have all that done. We're, a turnkey package to get agritourism folks on your farm.
Now, have you had photographers come out since you've listed it there?
Yeah. Yep. We've had, not sure how many. We've had plenty.
Oh.
We have photographers that use us regularly, and then we've had some randoms that, we do a little marketing ourselves. Land Trust does some marketing, but we've had photographers find our listing and bring clients. We've also had clients reach out to us that we try to connect with a photographer, and we just make a booking for that party, and then they come out. And we have a photographer across the street who comes when we're not here. She has a vehicle to get people around, and she knows the best spots, and just happens without us even knowing if it needs to.
So what are photographers looking for?
In general, I've noted, I'm a photography amateur, but I've noticed they're generally looking for light and contrast. So being tall grass grazers as we are, we have long wispy grass a lot and maybe some weeds. And we have, our place is rolling hills, beautiful oak trees, and creek bottoms. So we have some very picturesque type scenes. I have learned the hard way that depending on editing style, they're looking for different regions of the farm where there's either a lot of light or not a lot of light. The other cool thing we did this summer was we had some ground that we had to till up. We had 2 acres that had some perk holes dug in it for another reason. These were big, dangerous holes that were never filled in. It would swallow you up on a 4-wheeler. We just tilled the ground, and rather than plant, most of our grasses are cool season forage. So rather than plant fescue in the spring, which wouldn't do very well, we planted some summer annuals. So we did sunflowers and millet. And then, as you can imagine, sunflowers are beautiful to shoot photography in front of all summer. Yep. And in fact, I learned a valuable lesson. Next year, I will definitely plant those probably in stages to prolong sunflower season.
Oh, yeah. So they're not all ripe at once or all in bloom at one time.
Exactly, because it was really pretty, then it was really dead. And we actually had to postpone some bookings. A photographer she wanted a later booking than we had live flowers for, but we were able to monetize, we were able to pay for all of the disking and the planting of all that with just photography. And then we did dove hunting over top of it all fall. Now, we didn't monetize the dove hunting. We kept that for friends, family. And then, as you listen to on District Conservation podcast, we had some different journalists and, personalities come in to hunt with me to experience a land trust type model. We just never opened it up to the public. But that's a really good example of how $1,000 and 2 acres could be your cash register all summer and all through dove season. I guess you could honestly replant it and move right onto like a cool season annual type forage for wildlife too, if you want to hunt over it. But there's a proof of concept, and it was I know how to make it even more lucrative next summer.
Oh, well, very good. Now, one thing immediately, coming from the regenerative realm, I'm like, how can I get sunflowers in without disturbing my soil? I don't know if you can broadcast sunflower seeds, if they would get enough ground contact, or you've got to do at least some light disking to get them in or not.
I know you can no-till them. I know a lot of those
No, do they?
like high diversity mixes. I don't want to name any name brands, but I know a couple of them that have,
Yeah.
different types of, they'll have some brassicas and they'll have some forbs and flowers and all types of stuff. And those become, it's not a monoculture. They might have 15 species in them
Oh,
and they
yeah.
become really pretty in the summer. There's, flowers that are just as pretty as sunflowers, and they create a lot of contrast for those photographers as well. But
Oh, yeah.
I know a lot of those flower type stuffs are in those summer annual mixes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. One of these days, I'm going to have a no-till drill, but I don't have one yet.
I hear you. I want the same thing.
Yeah,
It'd
those
probably
things
be
are-
bad. It'd be like a gateway drug to me planning way too much.
Oh, I would agree. Yeah. I could fully see that being a problem. But one of these days. Now, you mentioned photography, you mentioned farm tours, and then you mentioned hunting and fishing were how it really got started. Is that the realm of uses that it imagines? And just in transparency, when I talked to you about this, about land trusts, I wasn't familiar with land trusts, but I assumed it was more like hip camp or one of those sites where people come camp on your land.
Yeah, I mean, we have lodging and camping within them. The site experience, like going on the website, landtrust.com, is similar to going on Airbnb or HipCamp in
Oh,
the
yeah.
way, the user experience of how you would locate whatever type of experience you're looking for. If you are, if you're somebody that's going to go do the experience, the experiences range from all types of hunting and fishing to anything a landowner wants to list. We have
Okay.
a ton of types of experiences. So anytime a landowner wants to list something new, we're all for it, within reason,
Right.
within insurance policies, right? You can only do so much. But yeah, we have lodging, camping, fishing. We have hunting experiences with lodging. A lot of the things are add-on too. Like there's some experiences you can book, and then if you like lodging, you can add that on. And it might be a
Oh, yeah.
tent. It might be a full cabin they have. It might be just RV hookups they have. That's very dependent on what the landowner offers. But we've been real active with hunting. That's how the company started out west. As we're moving east, which we're picking up steam pretty quick, we're adding a lot of things, birding, ranch tours, farm tours, photography, trying to think of all the different things. We have a lot of different things. We have, some cool coastal fishing now in Florida. We have some gator hunts in Louisiana, some like trophy gator hunts
Oh,
at a
yeah.
very cool historical place. But as far as if you're a landowner and you have something to offer, it can be whatever. And like I said, we're just the facilitation tool. We literally, a team of real people, build you a listing to showcase whatever you have on your farm or ranch, and we work with you to set the prices accordingly to how much you want to earn and how much business you want, and we go from there. It's a free market. We don't tell you what you should charge. We can advise you if you'd like that, but if you have more listings than you want, maybe raise your prices a little bit. If you're not getting as many, maybe bring them back down. What's really neat about us is if you list your land with us, you get a layer of complementary insurance. So we handle all the insurance. You do not have to go get other layers. If you list your land with us, we'll back up. So it's a two-sided marketplace. So all of our users, they would have to book your land through Land Trust. So when they're signing up for their profile, they're agreeing to terms of service. And within that, they're indemnifying the landowner as 100% non-liable. Now, this is America. Anybody can sue anybody for anything. So we have multiple layers of insurance that come with your listing. We have a liability policy, we have property damage policy, as well as we can advise you on your state regulations. A lot of states have agritourism, clauses within their state constitution. And everything that we do falls under an agritourism title. So we are truly an agritourism company. So our CEO likes to say, and I'm sure he will say it, and I use the line all the time, like if you've had anybody on your land that's not in your immediate family, you're actually more exposed than if you were to have a land trust listing and just make them sign up to come on your land, through that listing. So
yeah.
you're covered for that time. But the nice thing about it too is there's no contract to the landowner, and it's free to try. It's truly a revenue share. I knew we were going to get to the money part of this eventually, so let's just jump in. It's a revenue share. It's 80-20. So if you have $1,000 listing, you're going to get 800. We're going to get paid 200. It's a revenue share.
Okay.
When people sign up to use the service, so to come book something at your farm, they're ID verified through a third-party verification service, Stripe, through our website. So they have to be a real person. They have to have a U.S. driver's license. And then we also have their credit card on file. So as soon as they book, the money sits in escrow. So the money is credited to you. You know how much money you have coming your way. The morning of the event or booking, when they, 8:00, when they step foot on your property, that money drops from the escrow account into your accounts. So the money's transferred. So it's left in escrow. So if there was a cancellation or a refund, we don't have to get it back out of your accounts. Right. So,
Right. Now, with that, are all the things, and this really speaks to a little bit earlier conversation, you mentioned on the photography, you have someone guide them or take them around. On all these things, are you, the farmer, functioning as the guide for them?
no, you don't have to be. It says all decisions are up to the landowner. We have some landowners that want to be very, very hands-on and involved, and that's their prerogative. And as long as we explain that in the listing and you're not misrepresenting yourself,
Right.
that's fine. Every listing comes with listing instructions. So when somebody was to book your property, they're going to get a text and an email with the instructions for their listing. So on some of our stuff that's more remote, or some of our stuff where our landowner does not choose to be involved at all,
Oh, yes.
that person doing recreation is going to get a GPS pin of where to park. They're going to get instructions on, walk through this gate, please close all gates, check in here, whatever.
Okay.
You build all that completely customized with our onboarding specialist and our customer service team so it's handled exactly the way you want it handled. We have some landowners. We have over 1.25 million acres in our network now. So we have some of those acreages that the landowner would never want to drive all the way out there to the backside of his property just to check in with a pheasant hunter, right? He knows as long as that guy shuts the gate, it's good. The other thing to mention is the way we keep good people within our network is similar to Uber. Every time an experience is done, both the landowner rates the sportsman or the recreationalist, and they rate the landowner.
Oh, okay.
So we're able to weed out bad eggs. We're able to personally call and handle any non-satisfied parties. We're we're a team of real people that are very hands-on. And I guess I should mention, because I keep saying we, that I work for the company now.
I guess we didn't cover that. I knew that.
We never really covered
transitioned
that.
into it, but yeah.
But yeah, I was looking for this product exactly for my farm. We found it. I heard the CEO, Nick, on Working Cows podcast. I have some business experience with cows being so expensive. I knew I probably wasn't going to scale my farm this year to be at the revenue needed, and we're still in a growth stage. So I had some extra time, and as you know, I spend a lot of time in my office working on my business, or working on the business as much as I work in the business. So it's kind of a natural fit. I enjoy business. I really enjoy agriculture. And I called Nick and I was like, man, I have some skills. I'm fresh off a racing career, but I have some technical skills that maybe I could help out. So we started with like a contract labor basis to see what I could help with. And it kind of blossomed to there, and it turned into me working for the company full time. The company's based out of Bozeman, Montana. So there's a time difference, which works out well in my case.
Yes.
So I can get a couple hours in on the farm before I go to work for Land Trust. I know my schedule is very lined out for Land Trust and very lined out for the farm. I'm pretty type A, and I run a pretty tight schedule anyway. So I kind of work for both companies cohesively, and they both certainly complement each other. If I'm calling a landowner in South Dakota, I can start the conversation by talking about the cattle market if I need to. But I think it probably holds some weight that the company's run by people who are within the industry itself, and not, the company is tech. I would be considered a tech agritourism company, but we're not all from Berkeley, California, behind computers and don't have a clue what farmers and ranchers go through on the day to day.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I think that helps with our success for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. As you mentioned earlier, it's free for a landowner to sign up. You get some insurance to go with that. Is there, as you think about landowners and who can sign up, do you all have like a minimum size of acreage? You're thinking you got to be at least this many acreage before you can sign up?
I yes, but I hesitate to put a size value on that. Meaning, you could have a nice. I only have a 60-acre property here, and that's more than enough to accomplish the photography and the ranch
Oh,
tour
yeah.
thing that we do. You're probably not going to find a very successful 20-acre elk property. Maybe you have a really good 4-acre bass pond that's just loaded, and you sit on 20 acres. That might be very successful. So we handle it on a case by case basis. But yes, we know if it's not going to fit our model, and
Right.
we'll be very honest with you about that, because even though it's free, we're going to have time invested in you by the time we get
Right.
everything built out, and we don't want to waste your time. We don't want to waste our time. But there's no exact minimum size acreage. It's more as, does the experience fit the acreage? Are we offering a good experience? We want everybody. We're an experiences company, both
Oh,
landowner and
yeah.
sportsman side. And what we've found is, not intentionally, but very much so, we hear so often from our landowners how much they actually enjoy having these strangers come to their farm. I think
Oh, yeah.
if you really thought about like some old farmers and ranchers, most people just want to share their story at some point, and they want people to have an appreciation of their life's work. So this is sometimes their channel to be able to tell somebody and show somebody that's genuinely interested their life's work, which they might not otherwise have a chance to do that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
been a very fulfilling part of this job for me. That was not something I planned on being, but I'll write some blogs about some of these farmers and ranchers, or we'll hear the reviews, and it's like, I enjoyed so much showing, Roger and his family around all day. They're welcome back anytime, and you can just hear the joy in their voice,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's awesome.
Very good. I think about, as you say that, my grandpa would love nothing more than someone to come up there and show them around
Yeah,
for whatever
I
they may need.
my grandpa. My grandpa that passed away last year, that was nothing he enjoyed more at the end of his life than just throwing somebody in the farm truck, and 4 hours later, you'd be pulling back in at the dairy farm, and he showed you every corner of every field and told you every story that's happened
Oh,
there.
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have a grandpa tour listing, but somebody's going to have a grandpa tour listing and make a lot of money.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Now, one thing we mentioned throughout is landowners. Is this a possible revenue avenue for someone who leased property from an absentee landowner?
Yes, and we have plenty of cases of that, especially, out west. That's a big business model.
Oh, yeah.
It's not uncommon to find ranches that are owned by an absentee landowner. They might have an operating company that's an LLC. That's one set of people, and they might operate off of lease cows that somebody else owns, right?
Oh,
So
yeah. Right.
yes, that's allowed. We put it upon the landowner and the absentee landowner and the operator to figure out how the revenue is distributed and figure that out
Oh, yeah.
amongst themselves. We advise. We don't want we want it to work as smoothly as possible. So
Right.
we can help advise that relationship. I think a lot of those things, I hope a lot of those things are spoken about when people lease land. I think it's very common probably where there's things like oil and gas, that would be called surface rights.
Oh.
But hunting lease rights are a thing of real value nowadays. And those are generally discussed within contracts. So
Right.
we try to help people work through that and try to help them reach a resolution that helps all. Because on their end, maybe it's included in the lease. Maybe the lease is, I don't know, it could be a revenue share model. It could be whatever satisfies that party. But we will help with it. We don't facilitate it between the two parties, but we'll certainly steer you the right direction.
Right. When I think about the properties I have leased, part of them I have hunting rights on them that I lease out, and that was the agreement. And then part of it, we don't have any hunting rights because they were concerned about the liability on it and everything
Sure.
about just really concerned. but they might be interested in something else. So that's an interesting potential revenue or avenue of revenue that might work for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm a hunter. I hunt a lot of different species, and I'm about to be a dad actually in February. And I think this kind of goes back to racing, but one of the things I realized was that you can't buy more time. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not always easy to just schedule a week-long hunting trip in advance here, especially if you run a farm and ranch and weathers change. You have to be flexible. So this model allows the sportsman to really have some flexibility. Hey, I have 3 days. Let me look at the map. Like, I'm in North Carolina. Maybe I want to go hunt whitetails in Kentucky. Look at the map, find a property that suits me, send the landowner a request to hunt. He or she accepts it or denies it. I jump in the truck and I go. That's much different than having to pay for and maintain a yearly lease and keep a property up.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
think it's actually really good value now that I know what some hunting leases cost throughout America. Sure. But there's also a case for the times when you can take a week's trip to Wyoming or whatever, and you want to go with an outfitter. This is just a different tier. It's between going to public land and between going to pay an outfitter. We kind of call it it's like DIY private hunting. You get to do it yourself. You reserve the right for the whole property, so you don't have to worry about bumping into other people. You mentioned you listened to the District Conservation podcast with Gabriella Hoffman. I never thought about this, but she was a first-time dove hunter.
Yes.
And it was just her and I in the field. And I don't know if you've ever dove hunted, but like a big dove hunt can be extremely intimidating for somebody. Lots of hunters in the field, lots of shooting. It can be hard to get your bearings. And she was with me. She shot her first dove. It was awesome. She had some misses. She realized, oh, wow, these things fly fast and they're erratically. But it was like a really good controlled environment to introduce somebody to hunting and have them have a good positive experience the first time. I never thought about that. And I was like, man, this is the perfect way to get people into hunting until they're really comfortable to maybe go on some of these bigger or other types of hunts. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've never done dove hunting. I've only limited experiences with hunting, and it's just not a priority in my life. But we had a local gentleman who fishes and does some other hunting on us. He did some dove hunting this year on us.
Yeah.
So interesting. I'd never been around it. So that's the closest I've been around dove hunting. But it sounds like she enjoyed the trip on her podcast.
Oh, I think she's hooked. I think she's hooked for sure.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned a little bit ago, and I just want to make sure I heard it correctly. So someone says, hey, let's see if something's available. And they get on the website and they look and they find, oh, here's the activity I want to take. It goes to the farm or landowner to approve or disapprove that. Kind of like Airbnb, you make a request for a house, but the owner could deny it or allow it, either ways.
Yeah, that's exactly how it works. You asked about how involved a landowner has to be, and the minimum effort involved is you have to have a cell phone to accept or deny the bookings that come in. That's it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the minimum. We take a lot of pride in that this model leaves all the control in the landowner's hands. So the landowners have a back end to the website, a landowner portal where people can send them messages. You can talk directly to the landowner before you go, get tips, you can converse, and you can converse securely through our website, which is nice. You don't have to worry about some random person having your phone number if you're not comfortable with that. But the landowner can also manage the dates that it's available, just like Airbnb. If he or she brings in their family for Thanksgiving and they always do a family deer hunt, they can block off a week before Thanksgiving, the week of Thanksgiving, and the week after if they'd like, and nobody can book it. Conversely, every booking request has to be approved. So if you forgot to block something off and somebody makes a request and you're like, I can't have people here that day. No big deal. You can deny it, or you can propose a new time, or you can speak directly to the people. But everything's approved. The landowner, you stay in complete control the whole time. I think I don't know many landowners that have ever had a bad experience with us.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, Now the control is all with the landowner. So you have to be a little bit actively engaged. That is what's different than just a lease model where somebody leases your back 100 acres and you don't know who's coming or going. But if you're a landowner that's into, having control and to your rights on your property, this is the way to go.
Yeah. And you mentioned on there, it comes with, some layers of security for you, insurance. So what happens? A hunter shows up and they shoot a cow, because sadly, that happens. We've had it happen. Of course, it's never a hunter we told them they could be there, but
Yep.
what happens in that case? Or if you get a guest on and they destroy some property, what
Sure.
happens?
I mean, we have all that in place to deal with it insurance wise. In the case of, and we take pride in settling those issues. We will call the parties and settle the issues. Luckily, we've never had that happen, nor do I ever want it to happen.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's a real concern. In some cases, on the property damage side, we carry an insurance policy for that. But in some cases, it might just be cheaper for us to reimburse. If it's a tore up gate, are we going to file a claim for a $200 gate? No, we're probably going to send you a check and ask if you can drive to southern states or the farm store, and reimburse you for your time. Sure. We do get that concern a lot. We have big insurance policies in place to cover incidents like that. So.
Very good, Taylor. Very informative about land trust. Like we said earlier, Nick is going to come on. And so on Friday, we're going to release an episode with Nick on it and talk about his journey, why he just started land trust, and a little bit more about land trust and how it's going from his point of view. Taylor, really appreciate you sharing about it today. And it is time for us to do our famous 4 questions, sponsored by Ken Cove Farm Fence.
Ken Cove Farm Fence is a proud supporter of the Grazing Grass podcast and grazers everywhere. At Ken Cove Farm Fence, they believe there's true value within the community of grazers and land stewards. The results that follow proper management and monitoring can change the very world around us. That's why Ken Cove is dedicated to providing an ever-expanding line of grazing products to make your chores easier and your land more abundant. Whether you're growing your own food on the homestead or grazing on thousands of acres, Ken Cove has everything you need to do it well. From reels to tumble wheels, polytwine to electric nets, water valves to water troughs, you'll find what you're looking for at Ken Cove. They carry brands like Speedrite, O'Brien's, Kiwi Tech, Strainrite, Job, and more. Ken Cove is proud to be part of your regenerative journey. Call them today or visit kencove.com, and be sure to follow them on social media and subscribe to the Ken Cove YouTube channel at Ken Cove Farm Fence for helpful how-to videos and new product releases.
And I'm excited, Taylor, because you've already answered them before. But we're going to do them again, and we're going to see if those answers have changed, if they stayed the same. We're no peeking over trying to figure out your last answers.
Yeah.
Okay, our first question. What is your favorite grazing grass-related book or resource?
I believe I split this into a couple categories last time, but I think to know where you're going, you have to know where you came from, for sure. So in the cattle industry, I think knowing the history of how the cattle industry evolved in the U.S. is a good foundation, so you can help think about where it might be going. So one of my favorite books is called Cattle Kingdom, and it's very much on the history of the cattle industry in the U.S. And if you like old cowboy books, it's real good too. I've read all of the grass management books, but I really like Dale Strickler books. There's managing pasture, restoring your soil. I think there's one about managing in a drought, but those books are really good because
making your farm drought resistant.
Resilient. Yep, that's it.
Yeah. I'm looking around because I have it on my shelf.
Yeah. I like the illustrations in that book. I like that it's almost coffee table style.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, the managing pastures is kind of that way too.
Yep, absolutely. I think a really good one before you get in the business of farming is understanding. I know this wasn't on my list before, but this has been a favorite and a big changer in my life years and years ago, was Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah.
Understanding what's an asset, what's a liability. what's costing you money and what's making you money is a really good place to start in farming and ranching, because it's really easy to look like the fanciest farm or ranch on the block and realize you might have a lot of things costing you money and not many things making you money.
Right. Yeah. Excellent resources there, Taylor. You did mention Dale Strickler books before, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I don't think you mentioned that, but someone else has mentioned that on the podcast before, and it's a really good book. Cattle Kingdom? I don't know that
Yeah,
book, so I'll have to look that up.
it's a good one. People know I'm a reader, and I just get stacks of books for Christmas, and I plow through them. And I think Cattle Kingdom might have been I might have read them between podcasts. So,
Oh, yeah. Well, very good. Our second question, what is your favorite tool for the farm?
I'm going to split this one as well. We live and die by a soil temperature thermometer. I
Oh,
have
yes.
a little $15 Taylor, no pun intended, just who it's named by, soil temperature probe that I keep on the four-wheeler that really dictates a lot of answers about when we move cows, how much grass we take. I feel like if you boil grass management down and you just want to keep growing forage, the big part of that is keeping your soil at the right temperature, especially where I live, where it'll be 110 in the shade some days in the summer. So that's also dictates when I employ different types of grazing methods. There's all these names now for different grazing methods.
Yeah.
In the spring and the fall, when the ambient temperature is not going to get above 75, I will take a lot more grass and put a lot more herd impact in sometimes, especially in the spring when I'm maybe trying to stomp some seed heads in or something else. But because I know that if I take too much, I'm not going to nuke my soil, with the sun.
Right.
I can't do that in July and August here. I got to be pretty forgiving to try to keep that soil in that optimum range for growth. So that's probably my most useful tool as far as managing my cattle. Secondarily, that goes right along with the grazing chart. But then I would be remiss to say that an Excel spreadsheet, or in my case, Google Sheets, is something I use every single day, multiple hours a day. It's such a powerful tool. It's a calculator that's on your phone that links to your computer, that links to other people. I use it daily, multiple times.
Excellent resource there. I love Google Sheets. I love a good spreadsheet. Soil temperature probe. I really hadn't thought about that. But I think you bring up a valid point there about soil temperature. If you go in the spring or fall and do non-selective grazing, you're reducing that soil cover down greatly. But if your temperature is not going to affect that soil temperature negatively like it would during the heat of summer, then it might not be as bad as if you do it during the heat of summer. So during the heat of summer, to keep that from happening, modify your grazing just a little bit to leave more residue there. All these grazing methods we hear about, sometimes we hear and people just do it this way. They're all tools. They're all tools for us that we can pick out and use when we need to use it.
Yep. You hit the nail on the head with tools. I feel like whether it's finances or grazing or cattle, you just need to put different tools in your toolbox, understand how to use them and when to use them.
Right.
And I very much agree. I see a lot of arguments over different grazing methods, and it's the argument is one level too high. You need to go to the root of the argument, which is grow maximum amount of, if your goal is grow maximum amount of grass, or you need to know what your goal is, first of all. Is it cattle health? Is it soil health? Is it grow grass? Is it a year that cattle prices are high and you're going to take some grass out of that, let's call it a savings account of your farm, and you're going to trade some of that grass value for some more economic value? That might be a year. But you got to get down one more layer in the context of what does it take to grow grass? And that's water, soil temperature. That's pretty much all that grass cares about.
And just speaking a little bit more about that, my goal for a paddock I give cattle may change day to day, depending upon where that paddock is on my land and what I'm trying to do there. So it could change. Well, it could change for the paddock they're in today. I want to make sure I leave more residue, and the paddock I put them in tomorrow has some briars and I want them stomped out. It's going to fluctuate pretty rapidly, or could.
Sure. Yeah. And all of your land is going to be an evolution. It's going to change year to year. It's either getting better, getting worse, and sometimes it's okay and necessary to make a pasture worse. Maybe it's like I have a sacrifice pasture right now for the betterment of the rest of the land.
Oh, yeah.
I think as long as you have a plan and you know where you're going, it's okay. That's okay. Just have a plan and figure it out.
Well, I know I'm going to do a little bit more non-selective next year, at least in the springtime, because it was a little too selective. My paddocks were too big, and my Cerisa Lespedeza had a great year, and the cattle only like it when it's small.
Gotcha.
I would have to say my land went backwards this year, but we're going to use it as a stepping stone for next year.
Funny enough, we had historic summer rains, and I thought I had the bee's knees. We grew a lot of grass, but I think I brought my land backwards as well. When they're calling for an inch of rain and then we get 6, it's really hard to not damage a pasture when there's cows out
Oh,
there.
yeah.
That happened twice this summer, and you beat up. My cows aren't huge or anything, but when it's that wet, they're gonna pug it up, and I definitely have to do a little damage repair this fall.
Yeah. Well, that was we kind of got off on a tangent there about grazing methods on the favorite tools. That wasn't your tool of choice. If someone skipped over that, you probably want to go back and listen. Our third question, what would you tell someone just getting started?
Okay, so my favorite advice to somebody getting started now is I didn't make this up. This isn't a Taylor Moyer made up, but somebody said to me, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And it just comes down to mindset. And I'm not like talking about hippy dippy shit. I just mean you set out to be a farmer or a rancher and you have it in your mind that you're going to go do it. Don't let anybody tell you can't. Take that from experience with me. And that also goes for little things within farming and ranching. If you don't think you can do something and you try it anyway, it's probably not going to work because you're not putting your best effort forward. And if you do think you can do something and you set out to do it, you're probably going to find a way to make it work. Or you might learn lessons along the way, but get there. So I think a lot of that goes to mindset. And I think mindset's super important within anything you do, but certainly in farming and ranching.
Oh, yeah. I completely agree. I think that quote's attributed to Henry Ford. I'm not sure if
Maybe.
that's who really said it. You start digging into quotes and sometimes they have interesting histories on their own. But I do think that mindset is so important just to continue on that. Your mindset determines before you even begin whether you're going to be successful or not.
Sure.
Yeah. And lastly, Taylor, where can others find out more about you as well as Land Trust?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, they can find more about Land Trust at landtrust.com. That's our website. And you can even talk to a real person on there. You chat with us, however you want to communicate with us. And Land Trust is also on all social media. So Land Trust _hunt, Land Trust _landowners. We have a couple different Instagram accounts. But yeah, just please, if you have any questions, come ask us. We're real people. You'll talk to a human being. You're not talking to a chat bot. It'll be Josh or Colin or myself if you call the landowner side. So we'd love to chat, answer any questions you have. Me personally, you can also hit me up personally. That's fine. We have a farm website, ridgeviewlandandcattle.com. Instagram is ridgeviewlandandcattle, or you can find me on any of the other things at Taylor C. Moyer, whether that's X or Instagram. But I love to talk about this stuff. I love to work with people. If anybody just wants to bounce ideas or chat, I run a pretty broad network of folks, and if I can't find the answers, I have no shame asking other people for help. If there's a question you have that I can't answer, but I love to help folks and I love to talk about this stuff. So please reach out to me and let's have a chat.
Well, Taylor, really enjoyed getting on here and catching up with you. It'd probably be a little while before we catch up again with a baby on the way for you. That'll keep you busy for a while. But I really appreciate coming on and sharing today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Last thing I want to say is Nick is much better at talking about land trust than I am. So if this is halfway interesting, please listen to the next episode and hear from our CEO.
Very good. Thank you, Taylor.
Thanks, Cal.
I really hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I know I did. Thank you for listening. And if you found something useful, please share it. Share it on your social media. Tell your friends. Get the word out about the podcast. Helps us grow. If you happen to be a grass farmer and you'd like to share about your journey, go to grazinggrass.com and click on Be Our Guest. Fill out the form and I'll be in touch. We appreciate your support by sharing our episodes and telling your friends about it. You can also support our show by buying our merch. We get a little bit back from that. Another way to support the show is by becoming a Grazing Grass Insider. Grazing Grass Insiders enjoy bonus content, monthly Zooms, and discounts. You can visit the website, grazinggrass.com, click on support, and they'll have the links there. Also, if you haven't left us a review, please do. It really helps us as people are searching for podcasts. And I was just checking them, and we do not have very many reviews for 2024. So if you haven't left us a review, please do. Until next time, keep on grazing grass.